What's going on, kings and queens? Thank you for joining me again on Keeping It Copacetic. How you feeling? I hope you're feeling well. It's time to take a moment and relax, kick back, take our little minute for the day, or sometimes whatever amount of time you can get, whatever part of the day you can get that in. It might be a lunch, it might be after work or whatever, or just before bed. But at that time, just put your feet up, get in your comfortable chair, lay down on your comfortable couch, or just get in the bed, pull the sheets up over your head. Just take a relax with something nice to drink and mellow out, a cup of tea, glass of wine, a cocktail. For those of you who might be commuting, just take some deep breaths, take your coffee, no-dos, whatever you need to do. Keep your eyes on the road and be safe. We got you. I'm going to be reading chapter 19 today of Searching for Everland, getting all the way towards the end. In chapter 18, David caught up to Portia. He was trying to get her to do that freaky thing for him one more time, but she's not really having it. She just wants to think about herself and her own life and just get with George. They had lunch and she invited him for a weekend to Gatlinburg and he said yes. So that's all she has on her mind right now, just being selfish for a minute, just taking care of her. So that's a good thing. She has a better outlook on life. So, hey, enjoy yourself. And here we go and getting started with chapter 19. Let me take a little sip of this. Yes, and kick back. The weekend couldn't get here fast enough for me, and on Friday I called in sick. This was going to be a mental health day for sure. Last night I pulled out all of the things I wanted to take with me for a cozy mini vacation in Gatlinburg. I was too excited to eat, so I just drank some orange juice while I packed my clothes. When I was done, I showered and put on my purple Ralph Lauren velour jogging suit. It wasn't sexy, but you couldn't beat it for comfort on a road trip. It was just before noon when George pulled up in a pearl-colored Lexus 570. The man believed in going first class. He loaded up my bags in the back while I got some Snapples to drink and some nuts and fruit to munch on during the drive before I set the house alarm. I climbed in the passenger seat and leaned back, absorbing all the luxury, and I had a handsome driver to boot. In less than 5 minutes, we were on Briley Parkway heading toward the 40 East Interstate leading to Knoxville. I popped the top of a bottle of peach-flavored tea, and before I got it to my lips, George said, "Start talking." "We just got on the road. We've got plenty of time to talk," I said, hoping to put him off. "I don't want to spend the whole weekend talking about it. I want it to be done by the time we get to Knoxville." I looked out of the window at the white line that ran along the side of the highway, and then I looked over at his profile. I could hear Stevie Wonder singing Superwoman on the radio faintly in the background. "Where were you when I needed you last winter?" I didn't think he could deal with everything going on in my head, but there was no way around it, so I relented. "Where do you want me to start?" "Start at the beginning and don't stop till you get to the day you met me." "You've heard most of this before," I said, not wanting to go through this and spoil our trip. "I like reruns. You always find something you missed the first time." "Okay, you asked for it." I looked out of the front windshield as he zoomed past the slower cars in the center and right lane. When he switched back to the far right lane out of the passing lane, all I could see was the mountains rising out of the road ahead of us. I put down the bottle and started my story. I grew up in St. Louis. My daddy worked at the phone company and my mama was a teacher. There was me and my sister Paul, and we were all really close. When I was in my last year of junior high school, Mama got real sick. Her diabetes was causing all kinds of problems. Eventually, one of her legs was amputated, and then her kidneys failed. Mama got real depressed, and she didn't make it long after that. She died while I was in the 10th grade before Paula graduated from high school. Daddy was never the same. Gradually, he left us too, a little more every year. After high school, I came to Nashville to go to TSU while Paula stayed home and went to the University of Missouri so she could look after Daddy. Raymond, he was my college sweetheart. We met in my sophomore year, and we got married after graduation. Then we bought a house. We had a daughter and a son. Life and love was good for a long time. I think we're happy even with the tough struggles of making a marriage work over the years. But the bottom fell out when our teenage son, Nicholas, passed away suddenly 4 years ago. Raymond was too hurt to care for me or Pam, so he walked away. I paused for a few minutes to contain the emotions that had welled up inside of me. One more word and I would have choked. George pulled the car over at the next rest stop. He got out of the car without saying anything, walked over to my door, took my hand, and pulled me out of the seat. He wrapped me up tight in the warmest, heartfelt hug that I had ever experienced. "I'm sorry, Portia. I'm so sorry you had to go through that," he said as he embraced me and my pain. That was something Raymond had not been able to do. I held on to him, let my emotions go, and I cried, not just from the hurt, but from the relief. Tears filled with sadness, they drifted down my face, and I flicked them to the ground, glad to be rid of them. I got a comfort from George that I had needed for so long, a shoulder to lean on. I rested my head there and breathed in the scent of the pine and grass in the cool mountain air. "Let's stretch our legs," George said after a while. "There's a path that circles around the building." We walked around the path, and then I used the restroom and washed my face. Back in the car, we had gone about 3 miles down the interstate when I leaned forward to turn up the radio. "I haven't heard my name yet, and we're 25 miles from Knoxville," George said without taking his eyes off the road. I found the button that let my seat back, and that was where my honest rendition got a little shaky. A little over a year ago, I decided to try and pull myself together and get my life back on track. I changed jobs and went on a few dates. Now, my motivation in these decisions was deliberately omitted along with my dealings with David. I dated another doctor at the hospital. We went out a couple of times, but he was younger and we had different interests. Then you walked into my office and the rest is history. Not quite. What about your problem sleeping and your husband coming back on the scene? Well, I did see another doctor about my sleeping issues and a psychologist, and that situation is much better. As far as my relationship with Raymond is concerned, he resurfaced and started communicating with Pam right after we started dating. He seemed like a new man. He was free from all his demons. I was stunned. I didn't know what to make of it. After we came back from Vegas, he invited me to church and we talked. There weren't any hard feelings on my part, and he seemed to think we could pick up where we left off. I felt confused about it until I saw you at B.B. King sitting with another woman. I was there with him, but all I cared about was you. That's when I knew it was over, and I filed for the divorce. Is he cooperating? Not yet, but he doesn't have a choice. It's all over between us. Then George turned up the radio, and I exhaled. The traffic was heavy when we got close to Pigeon Forge outside of Gatlinburg. It was so close to the holiday that I hadn't realized so many people would be on the road already. Driving into Gatlinburg was like going into another country. It was a cross between a miniature Las Vegas without the gambling and a miniature Disney World. But when you turned off the main drag, it reminded me of the Pocono Mountains in Pennsylvania. We registered at the Smoky Mountain Chalet office and got the keys and garage opener to our cabin. "Are you sure it's only going to be you and me staying here?" George asked when we pulled up to our log cabin. "I reserved a 2-bedroom to give us some extra space, but I don't think I needed it. This is huge." George opened the door and it was amazing. It was wood everywhere, the walls and the floors, and layered in intricate patterns on the ceiling. "A week in here and we'll be too spoiled to go back home," I said. He put down our bags and gave me a hug. "Thanks for the invite." "Thanks for coming," I said, giving him a welcome kiss. George and I walked through the cabin. There was a wood-burning fireplace, a deck on the back with a hot tub, a spectacular view with rocking chairs, a theater room, and an entertainment room complete with a pool table. I opened the kitchen cabinets and refrigerator, and there was a nice set of china. The only thing missing was food. "We need to go out and do some shopping and get this place stocked before we take our coats off," George said. "We may not get back out before the weekend is over." "That sounds like a plan," I said, following him back out to the car. We found a Publix grocery store about 20 minutes away. "You know, this is the most mundane thing we've done together," I said, pushing the grocery cart through the bakery section. "Is that right?" he said, mulling it over. "I guess I've already received my share of the ordinary. At my age, I want it all over the top." "Not a bad philosophy," I said, reaching for a small pound cake. "Then again, I don't know if they have anything in here to excite your first-class taste buds." As a matter of fact, these oatmeal raisin and walnut cookies are calling my name, he said, placing them in the top of the cart. Further down the aisle, I watched him choose some gourmet cheeses and crackers and then 4 bottles of wine. We're only going to be here for a few days. And you said that to say what exactly? He said with a half smile. Nothing at all. The man loves his wine, no problem with that. The fruit was priced at a small fortune because it was out of season, but I picked up some strawberries, blueberries, and grapes. I like my breakfast, George said, grabbing milk, eggs, bacon, and bread. We threw a whole chicken and some T-bone steaks into the cart, along with some pre-made salads and frozen veggies. George picked up a giant bag of rice, and I had to laugh. We can come back to the store if we need to. Baby, I'm from the islands. I don't play. I'm not about to get snowed in these mountains and be hungry. Calm down, Boy Scout. There's no snow in the forecast, I joked, trailing him to the shortest line of the cashiers. We checked out and George paid the $173 tab. This weekend is my treat, I reminded him. I know, and I expect to be treated very well, he said, loading the groceries in the back. I'll cook tonight since you did all the driving, I said on the way back to the cabin. I'm not handicapped. You take care of yourself quite nicely, but allow me the pleasure to take care of you. I enjoy it. Now that's a page out of a book I've never read before. What do you mean? He asked, pulling into the cabin garage. I guess I've always had the role of taking care of everyone else. Is that the role you enjoy? He asked from behind an armful of bags. No, I've done it long enough. I'd trade it in a heartbeat. Then relax and let me do for you. Daylight started to dim once we had put the food away, and the colors across the sky reminded me of the beams of light I saw when I took the propofol trips. I took George by the hand and led him outside on the deck. Let's watch the sunset before you get started cooking. There was a plaid flannel blanket in the double rocking chair, and we wrapped up in it and watched the blue sky mix with the red and yellow of the sun, making a rainbow with purple hues. It doesn't get any better than this, I said. Always the pessimist, he said, giving me a kiss on the top of my head. George went in the kitchen to start dinner, and I tried to figure out how to start a fire in the fireplace. There was some kindling and a metal tin on the hearth, so I sprinkled some over the logs and lit them with the lighter on the mantel. I sat down on the sofa, and a feeling of peacefulness began to engulf me, like the small spark on the broken branch growing into a flame. It had been such a long time since I could enjoy silence, aside from the crackling of the wood as it slowly burned. I don't remember falling asleep before George came over and woke me. The clean smell of soap wafted over him like an aura, and he looked like he had stepped off a magazine cover in a navy cashmere sweater and tan slacks. You want to freshen up before dinner? He asked thoughtfully. Yeah, I do, I said, standing up and stretching. Looks like I have to catch up. Take your time. I'm not in a hurry. I sampled a little while I was working. Is there anything left for me? I asked with a chuckle as I walked into the master bedroom. I made some extra rice, he yelled behind me. That man's mama surely raised him right. All of his toiletries were neatly arranged, and his dirty clothes were in a hamper in the closet. I undressed, put on a shower bonnet, and climbed into the glass shower. I took George's advice and took my time enjoying the light massage of the water on my back. I dried off with one of the oversized bath towels and moisturized my skin with my favorite Coco Chanel lotion. I put on matching red bra and panties and pulled out a navy velvet dress to coordinate with George's sweater and slid on a pair of snakeskin mules. I combed my hair down and put on some lip gloss. Walking out to the living area, I felt a butterfly flutter in my stomach, and it surprised me. Even though I was comfortable with George, the thought of spending the night with him again had me excited. "Ooh, you look so beautiful, I have to hug you," he said when I walked into the living room. The smooth jazz he liked was playing, and it felt so good to be in his arms that I didn't even want to stop to eat. He had worked so hard preparing the meal, so I pulled myself away and said, "So, Chef, what's for dinner?" "We're having chicken and rice, Virgin Island style." "In that case, let me set the table." "It's already done. All you have to do is come into the dining room, sit down, and eat." "I think I can handle that," I said. George opened up a bottle of wine while I spooned the food on my plate. I said a quick blessing and put a forkful in my mouth. All I could do was shake my head. I loved this man. He was fine, accomplished, The sex was good and he could cook. After dinner, we sat at the table finishing the bottle of wine and talking. This was a good idea. It feels good to get a break from the grind, he said. You do so much for me. I was wondering what your expectations are from me. I just want you to look beautiful like you do tonight and love me. The same as most men, he said before quoting Ludacris. Be a lady in the streets and a freak in the sheets. Seriously, I want to know, I said, bursting out in laughter. It's the truth. I'm a successful, independent man, and the things I want in a woman are very simple. Someone who makes me happy, interests me, and excites me. I think you are a fascinating woman, and I love it that you're still a mystery to me. I like mysteries. Every day that I'm with you, I learn something new about you. I could say the same thing about you, I said. Now that I'm thinking about it, I could use a massage. My neck and back are tight from the drive and working for you all day. That's the least I could do after the delicious meal you prepared. Come on over by the fireplace and take off your shirt, I said, rising up from the table and turning up the volume of the music playing on the stereo. I went in the bedroom, kicked off my mules, and got the cocoa butter oil I use on my knees and ankles. There was a comfortable rug on the floor, but the blanket was softer, so I laid it on top of the rug and kneeled down. Take off your shoes and come lay down by the fire. It'll relax you. George pulled off his shoes and slid down on the blanket in front of me. Lie down and get comfortable, I said, pouring some of the oil in my hands to warm it. This was a fine specimen in front of me. I just wanted to look and admire it for a minute. I started at his neck, rubbing in a downward motion to release the tension. My hands moved down from the neck to the shoulders, squeezing the muscles along the slope and under the shoulder blades. I was captivated by the feel of his flesh under my hands as I rubbed and kneaded his spine and across his back. The light shine from the oil on his skin caught the light of the fire. I thought how intimate it is to touch another person, not just for a moment here and there, but to linger and become familiar. I felt like his body belonged to me for my pleasure. I rubbed in a circular motion to his lower back, and then I heard him let out a deep moan. Why don't you turn over? I whispered into his ear. Watching him shift his position, I pulled my dress off over my head. Very sexy, he said, looking me in the eyes after taking an extended gaze at my Victoria's Secrets. Let me help you, I said, unbuckling his belt and unfastening his pants and keeping my eyes locked into his. He put his hand behind my head and kissed me, and I wish I could freeze this moment in time. It was hot in every sense of the word. I had never made love in front of a fireplace before, and as many times as I'd seen it done in movies, there wasn't one scene that could hold a candle to the one we created that night. George always made me feel special. He was passionate and meticulous about everything he did, and sex was no different. The man handled his business, and I showed him all the appreciation that he was due. 45 minutes later, he said, this floor is hard as hell. That soft and warm bed is in there for a reason. Let's get in it. We left the fire dying down, and I followed him to the bedroom. He pulled back the covers and lay down, and I curled in next to him and fell asleep. I woke up first, eased out of the bed, and put on a robe. The shower would have woken him up, and I wanted to make him breakfast first. I washed my hands, wet a paper towel to wipe the skin on my face, and loaded the dishwasher with the dinner dishes. I found some skillets in the cabinet under the sink and took out the eggs. In 20 minutes, I had prepared him a large omelet with some of his cheese, crisp bacon, toast, and fresh coffee. I even washed up some of the berries and put them in the bowl on the side. I discovered a tray on a shelf above the counter, loaded it with the food and coffee, and poured some juice for myself. In the bedroom, he was sleeping so good that I didn't want to wake him, but in his own words, I don't like to miss breakfast. I set the tray down on the chest at the foot of the bed. I sat down on the side of the bed and leaned over and gave him a kiss on the lips until he stirred. He put his arms around me and started kissing me back. I could feel him pulling me down in the bed, so I said, George, wake up. I'm awake. Take off the robe. I made you some breakfast, and it's getting cold. I thought I smelled food, he said, sitting up in the bed. I got the tray and set it down in the middle of the bed. Thank you, baby. This looks wonderful, he said, taking a sip of the coffee. I thought this part of my life was over, I commented, watching him eat. What part is that, he inquired, giving me a questioning look. The romance and the extra attention from someone. Why would you think that? He said, eating a fork of the eggs and then biting the toast. It was over already, I said, popping some of the berries into my mouth. I guess when people have been together for a long time, they forget to show the love and affection like they did when they first met. That's just laziness. It doesn't have to be that way. They say familiarity breeds discontent, I remarked with a smile. Portia, the odds of finding someone you can be happy with are not in our favor. So if you find it, it's a precious thing. I would never take you for granted, and you can believe that. You make a mean omelet, he said, finishing his plate. I'll take this into the kitchen, I said, lifting the empty tray. You can go back to sleep, shower, or whatever you want. A few minutes later, I heard the water of the shower running. I finished cleaning the kitchen and took a few minutes to enjoy the majestic view of the mountains. I wasn't the one who likes to travel to places where the weather is cold, but the wintry landscape was beautiful. When the water stopped, I went to take my turn in the bathroom. Once we were dressed, we put on our coats and hats and headed out the front door. "You want to go for a hike in the woods?" he asked. "No, sir. I don't care to be the accidental target of some crazed hunter out here in the wilderness. Keep me on the beaten path," I said, looking down into the terrain. "Wise decision," he said, and we headed down the hill to the parkway. I could see my breath in the cool air in front of us as we walked, and my hands were getting cold. I put the right one in my pocket and reached for George's with the other. He squeezed my hand in his, and my whole body warmed up. We walked for several miles, looking into gallery windows and the quaint shops that lined the streets. Most were filled with Christmas decorations, even though Thanksgiving was still ahead of us. It suddenly occurred to me after the hint of my growling stomach that I was starving. I noticed the old-fashioned cafe on the next corner. "Could we stop over there and get something to eat?" I asked. "After the nice breakfast you made for me this morning, I can't let you go hungry," he said, teasing me. We sat down at a metal table with vinyl chairs by the window and ordered 2 bowls of chili from a waitress who looked like she had stepped out of the 1950s, complete with beehive hairdo. The food was good, and I started to wish we had a week instead of just the weekend. We walked a little further and stopped at an old-fashioned candy store. I felt like I was 10 years old again when I saw the jars of red hot dollars and jar breakers, boxes of Good and Plenty and Bit of Honey. I bought a pound of the mixed chocolate-covered nuts. "We probably need to turn around here, or we'll need to catch a cab to get back to the cabin," George said. "You're right, but I can't promise you we won't need that cab anyway." We walked into the cold wind and my eyes watered. We braved the blustering weather and made it back to the cabin, but the warmth of the chili had cooled and I felt like a popsicle. I hung up our coats and sat down on the sofa to rest. "I've got a few things to check on and a few calls to make," George said, getting his laptop and phone out of his messenger bag. I eased my shoes off and snuggled under the blanket. "Help yourself, I am going to La La Land," I said, closing my eyes. When I opened them again, I looked at my watch. It was 5 o'clock. I had been asleep for close to 2 hours. I sat up and saw George out on the deck taking in the view. I went into the bathroom to brush my teeth and wash my face before I started on dinner. "What's on your mind?" I asked him when he came in. "I would ask you the same thing." "I'm thinking it's time to start dinner." "Well, 2 heads together can do twice as much in half the time." "That's good to know," I said with a smile. "I've got the steaks. You can make the fixings," he said, looking in the fridge. "Would that be pre-made salads and frozen veggies?" "Sounds right to me." I set the table while he broiled the steaks and opened a bottle of red wine. When the smell of beef filled the room, I tossed the salad in a bowl and frozen veggies in the microwave. It barely took 30 minutes to prepare, but the dinner looked appetizing and the steaks were juicy and well seasoned. "How about a game of pool?" George asked after we finished eating. "I haven't played in a while, but I have to warn you that I have skills," I said, following him into the entertainment room. "Is that right? In this case, I think we can make this even more interesting." "Oh, you want to put money on it?" I said, choosing a pool cue. "No, I don't want to take your money," he said, self-assured as he chalked his stick. "You know about strip poker? But I'm going to teach you about strip pool." "Okay, teacher, I'll rack him and then you can break him," I said, arranging the balls in the triangle and lifting it off. He took aim for his first shot and hit the cue ball with such a jolt of force that they clacked hard against each other. The ball split off in various directions and angles on the table, and one with a strike rolled quickly into the right corner pocket. Then it hit me. I hadn't been honest enough with him. Seeing the ball so carefully set, so neat and orderly, be broken apart so quickly and completely, I had the urge to tell him everything, or close to it. I didn't want to take the chance of my secret destroying our relationship or the trust between us. There was something I wanted to tell you yesterday, but I didn't think it was a good idea while you were driving, I said cautiously. Go ahead and talk. I'm not easily distracted, he said. 10 in the corner pocket. The ball rolled straight and dropped into the pocket. Now you take something off, he said, grinning. I took off my shoes and put them to the side. Do you remember when we were on the plane to Vegas and I told you about my problem sleeping? Yeah, I do, he answered, 12 in the side pocket. The ball rolled in and he said, take something else off. I took off my socks and put them inside my shoes. I told you that I wanted to experiment with Deprivan and you advised me not to do it. 13 in the corner, he said, pointing the stick to the left corner. He leaned over the table as he aimed, pulled the cue back and took the shot, and the orange ball rolled in a smooth path into the pocket. Now this is starting to get interesting, he said, as I took off my shirt and laid it across the back of a bar stool. He walked around the table and called his shot, 15 in the side. He took aim just as I said the words. I tried it anyway. He shot the ball hard and missed, and the cue ball rolled into the pocket. I hope you're just trying to mess with my game, he griped with the tone of his voice rising in exasperation. No, I'm not, I answered with a straight face. What are you telling me? He demanded, standing still on the other side of the table. I'm saying that I was having a rough time and I was feeling desperate and I thought it could help. Are you out of your mind? He roared. Sometimes I thought I was. I knew it was dangerous. I just wanted some relief. Who gave it to you? He shouted at me. One of the doctors at the hospital, but it was my decision and there's no one else to blame. Are you addicted to it? He asked, walking over to me and standing where I could feel his breath on my face. No, I only used it a few times and I'm done with it. Why didn't you tell me this before? He asked sternly. I didn't want you to get upset. I'm telling you now because I want to be honest with you and I want to be able to talk about it with you. I can't believe you would do something so crazy, he said, shaking his head and sitting down on the bar stool. That's because you've never been where I've been. I was so consumed with sadness and heartache that I didn't know if I was going or coming. That's why I backed away from you in Vegas. I wanted to be with you, but I was a mess inside. Why couldn't you just talk to me? It's not easy to expose your open wounds to people. I didn't want to seem weak. I don't know what to say. You don't have to fix it for me. It's done, and believe it or not, it changed so many things for me. You've lost me. Some strange things happened to me when I took the drug. I flashed back to some special moments I had with my son, and it helped me to see him again. I was able to let go, enough where I could move on and not be afraid to be happy again. I know I went too far with it, but it made all the difference to me, and I want to share that with you. Baby, I had no idea what you were going through or the things that you were dealing with, and I'm sorry that I didn't realize you were that serious when you mentioned it to me. George, there was no way for you to know. I lived through it, and it's in the past, I said, thinking about the other trips I had taken. It's a good thing you didn't tell me this all while I was driving, he said, putting his arm around me and giving me a tight hug. Do you want to finish the game? He asked with a sexy smile. My nerves are shot, I said, handing him my cue stick. Mine are too, he said, putting the sticks in the rack. Let's get in the hot tub with a bottle of wine and let it go. Sounds like a plan, I said, wrapping my arm around his waist and kissing him on the cheek. Thanks for understanding. You're my lady, Portia. What else am I going to do? In the jacuzzi, I did my best to make George believe that there was not another woman in this world who could make him feel the way I could. Opening up and talking to him had been liberating for me. I was more at peace than I had been in years. I could see that my grief and unhappiness had been magnified by the loneliness and the rejection I felt when Raymond left. I already had a broken heart, and then he stomped on it. My heart still had a hole in it, but at least it was functioning again. And thanks to George, I had a man I could love who wanted to love me back. I'm not ready to go back, I said when George pulled me close to his chest the next morning. I've enjoyed it, but I'm ready to go. It's too country for me. I thought it was about you and me being together, I said, laughing and turning around to face him. We don't have to be in Great Smoky Mountains to be together. When we get back home, you can come and stay with me. Do you realize that I've never been to your home? I just invited you to make it our home. You always say things so casually. I don't know when you're joking or serious, I said, getting out of the bed. Know this, he said, getting up and grabbing my hand. I'm always serious about you. We showered, dressed, and packed up our things in the quiet. I liked that we could spend time with each other without feeling we had to talk constantly. Can you believe we haven't watched TV for 2 days? I don't think we missed anything, he said, winking his eye. Is it too late to do that morning thing? I asked, winking back at him. Yeah, it is. It's time to get something to eat and get out of here. And seeing as you have all that energy, you can start the drive. I made some coffee and some sandwiches out of the eggs and bacon, and we ate them pretty quickly. There was a lot of food left from our grocery shopping. I bagged up the stuff that wouldn't spoil, including the big bag of rice, and I washed the fruit to eat on the way back. We loaded up the car, and I climbed into the driver's seat. George slid in the passenger seat and leaned his seat all the way back to rest. I turned the radio down as I backed out of the garage and whispered a goodbye to my log cabin. It had been a good trip. Short, but it had accomplished all the things I hoped it would. I drove for an hour with my mind shifting back and forth between the beauty of the clear blue sky and the calmness of the cows standing out in the fields. Then I couldn't help reminiscing about the hot touches and kisses George and I shared in the jacuzzi last night. Glancing in the rearview mirror, I could see the mountains growing smaller behind me, and I reflected on how my life was so much simpler when I was out of town. I'll take us on in, George said, reaching for the keys at a rest stop on the other side of Knoxville. Oh, so you got your strength back, I said, teasing him. Some, he said with a smile. You never know how tired you are until you slow down for a minute. I don't know if this classifies as slowing down, not to mention I've got a busy week ahead of me with Pam coming home for Thanksgiving next week. George took the wheel, and I was happy to take his lean back seat. I followed the lines of his profile and then closed my eyes content. Wake up, sleepyhead, you're home, George said, nudging me. I stretched in the seat while he took my bags out of the back. You want me to bring the food in too, he asked. No, I wouldn't feel right about keeping your rice. Very funny, he said, putting my bags at the bottom of the stairs. I'm going to miss you tonight, I said, holding his hand and walking beside him to the door. My offer still stands, he said, giving me a soft kiss on the lips. I followed him to the door and waved as his car pulled away. The honeymoon feeling didn't last long. All of the problems and worries that I had left at the door when I left were waiting for me. I barely had time to unpack and put a load of clothes in the washing machine before there was a knock on the door. I opened the door and it was Raymond, looking at me like he was an officer of the law with a warrant for my arrest. And that is chapter 19. I'm sure Raymond is going to have a surprise for Portia. Anyway, thanks for joining me again on Keeping It Copacetic. Please like and subscribe. And I will see you again as we move on to chapter 20 in Searching for Everland. Leave me some comments. Let me tell me what you think about it so far. I'd love to hear what you have to say.